Welcome back. So in today's session, we'll learn about Python first class function. So why are function called a first class function in Python? So we'll learn about that. So let's get started. So in Python, why is functions called a first class function in Python? So let's define a function double number, and here we'll say return num into 2. So we'll double this number. Okay. So now let's have this variable. Let's say my double is equal to double of some number, let's say 5, and let's say print my double. Let's print double. Okay, so here I've defined a function double. It takes a number and it returns twice the number. So if I run this code, you can see here I have a variable my double. I've assigned the output of this function to this my double, and then I print the value of my double and I print the double here. You can see I pass 5 in this double and the output is 10, and I print the double, which is basically the function. So it gives me the object of this function. So now let's say we remove this parenthesis, okay, like this function call. If we remove this and let's run this code again, so we see the same object address for this both my double and the double. That means we are basically assigning the function double, the object of this function double, to this variable. So now I can directly call my double and pass 5 here. I'll get 10, and I can pass 5 here and I'll still get 10. You see, that means I'm assigning the function double here, but I'm not calling the function here. Like, I'm not calling the function, but I'm just assigning the function. But here, when I assign this function to this variable, now this variable is also a function type. So now I can call this variable. Okay, so this is the first pillar for a function to become a first class function. Okay, so let's take another example. So now let's try to have a higher order function. Let's say def. So I defined a function shout. It takes text as an argument and it converts the text to an uppercase, right? And here I defined a function whisper. It takes the input as a text and it just converts the text to a lowercase. And then I define a third function which takes a function as an argument, and in line number 17 you can see we have called this function, we have passed the text, and we are assigning the output to this variable greeting, and here we are printing the variable greeting. Okay, so we can say greet is a higher order function. So this is a higher order function. So this function greet is a higher order function. Why is that? Because it takes a function and it does something right here. Now let's call this greet, let's say greet, and let's pass shout here. You see that I don't call this shout, I don't call the function, but I just pass the shout. That means I'm passing the function shout here. Okay, and then run this code, and you see we see here I there. So when we call this function greet, so I call this function and I pass a function as an argument. So I pass this function as an argument. So if I print this func, if I run this code, you can see I have this function at certain address, right? So this is the object of this function, right? So that means I can call this function. So let's run this code again. So we get a function here and we're calling the function from this, like we are calling the function here. You see this parenthesis? And we're passing this text. So when we call this function, that basically what is this function for current scenario? So the function in this case currently is shout. So that means I'm calling the function shout. So that means in this case, it is shout, it is shout. So basically it is calling this shout function. Okay, and then what does this shout function takes? Like it takes text as an argument and it returns the by converting the text to an uppercase. And here what would be the output? It would be hi there in capital case. So greeting will be in capital case, hi there in capital case, and we are printing the value of greeting. Correct? So let's change this shout to whisper. Now you see, we see in all lowercase. That means now currently I call this greet function. Now I pass whisper as a function here as an argument. I will pass whisper function as an argument. And then here we call this function, and whisper, it takes a text and it converts the text to a lowercase and it returns. And now my greeting is basically hi there in lowercase. And then we print the greeting. Okay. Now let's have another example again. So we have this parent function. Also, we'll have two other function. Let's say, let's define another function. That's another two function. Let's say def. Hi, I'm Pratap. hi, I'm Madhav. So here we define first child function. It basically returns hi, I'm Pratap. And here I define second child function, and it returns basically hi, I'm Madhav. So now inside this parent function, so let's say if num equal to 1 will return first child, else will return second child. Please note that I'm not calling the function, I'm just returning the function. Once again, please note that when I call this parent function, and like when I return this, I'm returning the function and not the function call, right? I didn't call the function, I'm actually returning the function. So now let's call this parent. We can say my parent is equal to parent, and let's pass 2, and here let's print my parent, and let me print my parent also, and let me run this code. Okay, so here let's see what we have done in line number 35. We call this parent function and we assign the output to this variable my parent, right? So when we call this parent with the argument 2, let's go to this parent function. So we get an argument of 2. So here num is equal to 2. Is num equal to 1? No, it's not, because num is equal to 2. And then it goes to the else block and it returns the second child. So here please remember that I'm not returning the function call, I'm returning the function object, right? If you don't believe, let me print here second child. So you see the second child is basically like when I return here, I return the function object, not the function call, right? So in that case, when I return this some child, like second child in this parent function, so now the value of this my parent is now the function second child. So when I print my parent here, in that case, this is a function. I'm not calling the function, but in line number 37, you can see I call this function using this parenthesis. So in that time, I'm executing or I'm calling that function. So I return a function here, and I'm calling the function here. Therefore, I get hi, I'm Madhav. So if I pass 1 here, and if I run this code again, you see here, I see hi, I'm Pratap, and now the object is of different location. That means I'm returning a different function. So this type of function is called higher order function. So what is a higher order function? A higher order function is a function that takes a function as an argument and returns a function. Okay, that means here, if you see this example, it takes a function as an argument. And here in this case, it returns a function. Like when I call this function, it returns a function. So let's see the difference between returning this first child like this and return the second child like this without calling it. So the difference is parenthesis. So can't call this function because this is not a function anymore. This is a string here, right? If you don't believe, let me comment this. So I don't have to comment. We already have here, hi, I am Pratap. When I return like this, I call this function and I'm returning the output of this function. Okay. But when I say return like this, so I'm actually returning the function and not the output of the function. So I hope I'm able to help you with understanding the higher order function. Why do we call first class function? So these are the 3 pillars of first class function. So one pillar is we should be able to assign a function to a variable, okay? And we should be able to pass function as an argument, okay? And the third pillar is we should be able to return function from a function. So these are the 3 pillars that should be satisfied in order to call a function a first class function. So I hope you are clear with this and hope to see you in the next session.